Good day everybody, my name is Daniel and I'm going to be your instructor for this video. So what are we doing in this video? We're going through Delphi arrays, right? Arrays are used in every programming language, they're very popular, and in this video I'm going to be explaining why and how we use them, okay? They're very important for your tests and exams, and also if you're in grade 11, you're doing your PAT, the teacher may require you to use arrays in some form of fashion, okay? So they're very important. So without any further ado, we're going to create a new application, okay? Okay, there we go. So I'm going to click on file, I'm going to click on new, I'm going to click on console application, and this will generate a new console application, right? Now before I save this and continue demonstrating, I first need a second of your time just to kind of explain the analogy, right? My analogy that I'm going to use to explain what arrays are, right? So arrays are basically a data structure that is in a linear format, okay? So what that means is that it's a bunch of variables that are stuck up next to each other. So best way for me to demonstrate that is through notebook. So what is a variable? A variable is basically like a little box where you can store your stuff inside, right? So this can be, you can store a string, you can store maybe an integer, maybe you have the number 5 in there, etc., right? But an array is basically a storage box like this in a linear fashion where you can store a lot of different values in one kind of data structure, okay? So, and an array arrays elements, so whatever goes inside of these things would be elements. Like you would have, maybe if you wanted to do an array of integers, you would have maybe numbers in there, maybe 5, 6, 10, 100, maybe 1,000, maybe 6 or 9 or 10, whatever, right? So, and if you wanted to have an array of strings, it would be basically the same thing, right? So it's just that the difference would be there would be actual strings in here, like maybe fish or cool drink or whatever, right? All separated by commas or whatever. So what the difference is that if you created a lot of, if you wanted to have a lot of things like such as elements such as numbers and strings and whatnot, and you only had access to variables, you would have to keep on creating a lot of variables, right? So now imagine if you needed to create 1,000 or 1,000,000 elements, right? You would have to create 1,000,000 variables, which is not feasible. However, using arrays, it's very easy to do so, right? You just tell the compiler that, hey, listen, I want to have an array that stores 1,000,000 values, and the compiler or your computer or Delphi will do that automatically for you, no worries, okay? And arrays are especially good because now you can just basically run through each and every single element in just one line of code, okay? There's so many things you can do with arrays, and we're gonna get into it, okay? So before we jump into the code, guys, please like and subscribe the video. It really does good for the video and I appreciate it so much, okay? Now let's get into the code. This is what we're here for. So now in that newly created project that you've just created, right, what I want to do is that I always want to test my project if it works and there are no errors. So I'm just gonna remove this comment. I'm gonna write read line, and above that I'm gonna write line. I'm gonna say hello world, okay? I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna click on file, save all. I'm gonna go and save my project in tutorials. I'm gonna create a folder called arrays, and I'm gonna save my project in here, save that, right? So I'm gonna run it, and my antivirus might go crazy. There we go, don't worry about that. What's important is that I get a hello world over here, okay? So I'm gonna get rid of that, close this, and close my program, so everything works, right? So now let's create an array. This is how you create an array. You need to declare an array just like how you would declare a variable inside of the variable section of things. Okay, so now let's give our array a name, right? So I'm just gonna say food. Maybe let's just say we're in a what's this, a buffet or a wedding, right, where it's like a lot of food on one table, for instance. So I'm just gonna say food array, okay, separated by a semicolon, and now you're gonna enlist the length of your array, right? So my array, I'm gonna say array, right, and I'm gonna add these braces, and I'm gonna say it starts off at 1 and it goes on to maybe 5 elements. Okay, so my array only stores 5 elements, first to 5. Okay, and I'm gonna say of string, so my array is of the type string. Okay, so I just want to add a little comment section over here just so that I don't forget a lot of things. Okay, I'm just gonna copy this and I'm just gonna put it above here. You don't need to do this. This is for me. It's definitely not for you. Okay, so I created my array, and now what I want to do is that I want to add elements inside of my array. So as you saw here, this is my array, right? And this array that I have over here, it has elements. It has a 5, a 6, a 10, 100, etc. Right? So mine, the difference is that it's going to be of strings, and I want to add elements inside of all these boxes, right? And in our case, we have 5 boxes to insert or to work with. So how do I do that? I'm going to remove this right line, get rid of that, and I'm going to start by saying food array, right? And I'm going to say the index of it. So which number, right? So every array, I'm gonna go back to this node. Every array, okay, it has like an index. So if this is my array, this could be position 1, position 2, 3, 4, and 5. These are called indexes. Okay, so this is my first position. I can store something. I can also store something in the third one and in the fourth, etc. I can do whatever I want with my array. Okay, so I'm gonna say for the first position, I want to store a string called water. Okay, and that off with a semicolon. And now what happens is that water is being stored in the first position of my array. Okay, so that's basically it. So let's maybe store something in the second and the third, right? I'm just gonna copy this code, right? So you can type it out if you want. I'm gonna say for the second one, I wanna store fruit. Maybe I'll say an apples, right? And in the third one, I'll say, hey, listen, I want bananas. Okay, so there we go. We have water, apples, bananas, and notice that in the fourth and the fifth one, we don't have anything yet. So we can continue adding things, but for demonstration purposes, I'm not gonna add anything yet. Okay, so okay, we have our array. Now what? What we want to do is that we want to show, or we want to print out the values of our array. Okay, so how can we do that? And a normal variable, obviously you would just say write line and you would just print out that variable to the screen. In an array, it basically works the same way. Let me show you. I'll say write line, I'll say food array, and I'll just pop in the index. So which food array item? I'll say, okay, the second one. Okay, food array 2, just like how we declared here. I'm gonna run that, and yes, my computer's gonna give me a problem today. Then we have apples over here. Okay, so we have apples, and that's exactly what we should expect, right? Right. Okay, all right, so this should return apples. Okay, that's great. If I were to do the same thing with maybe print out the third element, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to print out bananas like that. Okay, that's what's gonna that's my output. Okay, however, if let's say I wanted to print out maybe the fifth element, right? And notice here we didn't actually set anything for the fifth element. What's gonna happen is that it's gonna run, it's gonna work, but it's not gonna show anything. Okay, it just shows that that address exists. However, it's empty, so nothing is actually going to show up in your console. So it just returns nothing. Okay. However, one final demonstration here. If I wanted to print out, okay, I wanted to print out the food array, maybe the 6th element, and notice that we only have an array up to 5. What's actually going to happen is that this is not going to work. If I run this, we have an error. Okay, it gives us an error, and see what it says. It says constant expression violates sub-range bounds. That basically means that you are outside of the bounds of the food array. Okay, this could only work if maybe I increased the size. Maybe I said, okay, the total size is of size 10. Now our array has expanded. It's of the size 10. So obviously the 6th element does now exist. Although if I do print it out, it'll also give me nothing. Okay, but it does exist. Now it won't give me an error. Okay, so I'm gonna take this back up to 5, and I'm gonna remove this since that line would give us an error. And congratulations, you now kind of understand what arrays are and how to insert elements inside and how to print out the elements that are inside the array. Okay, so but what we're doing is that we're going individually and trying to print out each and every single element from the array. Okay, what if we wanted to write one line of code that could print all these elements out onto our screen? What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a for loop to loop through each and every single element inside of the array and print out everything. Okay, but before I do that, let me just clear all of this, and I'm going to populate the 4th and 5th index. So I'm going to just paste this. I'm going to say the 4th element is now potatoes, and the 5th element is maybe tomatoes. Right, let's just say that's my array. Now I want to print out everything, right? So I'm going to have a for loop. I'm going to say for I is set to the value, okay, set to the value of 1 to what? To the last element of the array, because we're only looping until the last element of the array, because remember, if we go overboard, it's going to give us an error. So I'm going to say to 5 do, and I'm going to say begin and end. So now I is giving me an error, it's undeclared, so I'm just going to add it here. I is an integer, okay, because we're using I right there. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to now start printing everything out. I'm just going to write a write line function, write line, and I'm going to say, what am I writing out? I want to write out the food array's elements, right? But I want to do it in one line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say food array, and instead of passing 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 here, I'm just going to pass in I. So what is I? Remember, in a for loop, the I keeps moving or keeps changing. It goes from 1, goes to 2, goes to 3, goes to 4, goes to 5. And if you do the math, basically what happens is that food array is going to be called 5 times, and food array's I value is going to change. So it's going to go from nothing to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. It's going to change whenever I changes. So if I leave it as I, it will also change. So now basically this should print out all the elements in our array. I'm going to run this, and bear with me with the noise. Ding ding ding. All right, you get it. Now as you can see here, we have water, apples, bananas, potatoes, and tomatoes. Okay, so this worked as expected. I'm going to clear that, cancel that, cancel that. So okay, now we have a for loop and we can get the elements from the array. Okay, now I'm going to show you something. This is not the only way to declare an array. Okay, we can declare an array in a different way. Say you just wanted to create an array and you didn't want to have to deal with adding these values manually like this. Okay, let's have another example. Let's create a different array, and in this array we're going to store numbers, for instance. So I'm going to say numbers array. I'm going to name it numbers array. Okay, I'm going to have a semicolon. I'm going to say array, and I'm gonna define the size of it. Maybe let's say this one we want until size 6, so I'm gonna say 1.6. I'm gonna say of integer. Okay, now we have numbers array of integer. So now how do you populate this with values instead of doing it like this? Okay, inside after the integer, I'm just gonna say equals to open and closing braces, and I'm just gonna give the values right here separated by a comma. So let's just say we want 10 up to 60. Okay, I'm gonna say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60. So these are my values. Okay, and this will work normally. Okay, this will work normally. Notice that there are 6 values inside of this array. If I wanted to add more, like maybe I wanted to add 100, it's gonna give me an error. Why? Because now we've exceeded the number of elements that we can have inside of this array. Okay, however, it won't have a problem if we do reduce the number of elements. Oh, actually no, it actually gives us an error. It wants the exact number of elements if we're doing it like this. Okay, so my bad for that. Alright, so now, like I said, again, we can loop and traverse through this integer array. Let's do that. I'm gonna comment this one out, right, so that we don't get confused. I'm gonna write for loop to print numbers array. Okay, so I'm gonna write another for loop, and this time I'm gonna use the j element. I'm gonna say j is an integer. Okay, go back here. I'm gonna write another for loop. I'm gonna say for j is set to the value of 1 to how long our array is. Our array has 6 elements, and then I'm gonna say begin and end, and I'm gonna write line. I'm gonna print out the elements inside of that array, which is numbers array, number array, and I'm gonna pass in I. So this should work. In most cases, you're probably gonna want to typecast. It depends on what exactly is happening with your code. So you can typecast this by saying int to string and have this numbers array inside of these squiggly brackets like that. Okay, so int to string numbers array, and this should work fine. I'm gonna run this, and okay, we get an error. Okay, just hold on, there's a little problem here. So this returns 60 60 60. What is going on? And oh, okay, the reason why it's giving 60 60 60 is because I'm still passing in I. I'm supposed to pass in j because that's the index, my index. Okay, I'm gonna pass in j, and if I run this, there we get the required number of values. Wow, I really messed up with the antivirus thing. Okay, I'll fix that next time for you guys. Okay, okay, last but not least, let's just say we wanted to loop. So this is actually a practical example. Say we wanted to loop through this entire array, and we wanted to get the total sum for of this array. So this is a question that you can get, or you can expect in one of your questions in an exam or something like that. Maybe they ask you to find the smallest number, or maybe they say get the highest number, or maybe they say use the numbers in the array to do some form of calculation. We're going to be doing a very simple basic example where we're basically going to just be getting the sum of all these elements inside of here. Okay, so I'm gonna say get the sum of the elements in numbers array, right? So I'm gonna say for, I'm gonna create another variable called k. For k, set to the value of 1 to the length of the array, which is 6, and then do. I'm gonna say begin and end, right? I'm just gonna comment this one out for now, and k is not declared. I'm gonna go back here and I'm gonna declare it. Say k is an integer, and I need to declare a sum value. Okay, so I'm gonna say sum is also an integer, and then now all I have to do is just keep on incrementing sum. Okay, I'm gonna say sum is set to the value of sum plus numbers array, and numbers arrays element. Okay, so basically what's happening here is that just like this works just like incrementing elements. So you take the value and you add that value on top of that value, and then you add it back into the main value. Hope I explained that properly. You guys should know about how to increment values already. Okay, so the only difference is that now we're incrementing values from the numbers array. So if you remember properly from this loop, what we got is all the elements inside of this array, right? So basically all those numbers are going to be added to the sum, and then the sum and that number is going to be added to the main sum. So we should be able to get our total sum. So I'm going to write down, right line, I'm going to say the total sum is, I'm going to say int to string, and I'm going to pass in sum. Okay, so this is the last time you guys are going to ever hear about this antivirus sound. I promise you guys. There we go. So okay, so that's my output. Total sum is 360, and if you guys want to do the math, if you go and say, okay, if you guys go and add all these values up, 60 plus 50 plus 40, 30, 20, 10, you'll realize that all those values will amount to 360. Okay, so and that's what we get right here. So guys, that's basically how you use arrays in Delphi. It's nothing too complicated, it's not difficult. You just need to kind of get the hang of it. You just need to practice and get familiar with them, and we're going to keep making videos like this here. So just stay tuned for more videos. Please like and subscribe, and also the source code, if you want this code exactly how it is, you will find it in the link below. Okay, it'll take you to GitHub. So I'll see you guys in another video. Peace.